know the vibes. Welcome to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast. We send our apologies. Usually we have an episode every day. This week, Monday, I was traveling. Yesterday, BJ was traveling. So our schedule's been a little disrupted. But BJ, how was your trip?
I'm always available, Mo. I tell you that. I'm always available.
They ain't gonna
Mo is traveling.
They ain't gonna wipe out on those planes. Don't lie to me.
Mo.
I forget you got a private jet. I forget.
Hey, Mo.
I forget.
I'm always available. I got 24 hours in the day. That's
I'm on the private jet life. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't have a private. I don't do private.
Yeah. We keep it humble. We keep it humble. Yeah, it's 2:30 in the morning. Don't tell me about 24 hours.
So what's going on out here in the NBA? What you got?
Well, the people are saying they need to hear the podcast about this situation in Brooklyn. So we're gonna start right there. Steve Nash, KD finally got his wish. Steve Nash was fired.
Okay.
And it looks like Ime Udoka is gonna come in and take the reins. Now, Peter, what do you think about this firing of Steve Nash? Would you have not thought this would be better to do before training camp so the new coach can come in and get their stuff sorted rather than coming off a win in the middle of the season? Well, not in the middle of the season, but, once the games have started.
Well, I think with everything that is going on there in Brooklyn, they've really been, kind of taking a wait and see approach, right? And when Steve Nash, Coach Nash came there, I don't think anyone anticipated or expected him to be the next head coach.
KD and Kyrie demanded it.
Right. Well, reportedly, allegedly, that's what was said. And whatever the case may be, he's there and he was there. And they've had some ups and downs. How do we want to say this politely?
They've had downs.
Where
I don't know what the ups are.
The
first half of the regular season last year, and I guess
they got a playoff series. They won at least one playoff series I can recall.
One playoff series,
and they had some injuries. It's had some things, but clearly they didn't meet the expectations. Now, what is going on there? When you have situations or scenarios like this, we've seen this movie how many times? The first person to go or the first person to blame is always the coach. We just saw it last year with Frank Vogel. I'm sure we'll see another one at some point during this season. When your expectations are high, and certainly this team had very high expectations, and they're not met, this is what happens. Now, who's next? Well, then you start looking at the executives. Then you start looking at trading players, so forth and so on. So they're making this change. We'll see what this change is going to do. They're quite familiar with, the coach. They've, at least what we're hearing is going to be the next head coach there. They work together. Some of them worked with him in San Antonio. He was the assistant coach
had him
there.
In Philly.
He had him in there in Philly,
and Brooklyn.
And now he's here in Brooklyn. Now he's back in Brooklyn after doing a terrific job there in Boston on the court. So we'll see how this plays out. It's a lot to unpack. We could literally spend the next 5 hours talking about this. Everything is going on. But it is what it is. And you've heard me say this. This is a very dysfunctional and ran by dysfunctional people. This is a very
that's your favorite saying.
Yeah, it is, because that's what it is, right? And unless you can function in this type of environment, this isn't the league for you. I mean, how do you even explain this? I mean, I've watched this. I was at an NBA game last night, and I spoke to those executives, and they were just like, what is going on? We just kind of looked at each other like, what is going on? And no one can explain this. I mean, this is like one of those moments where you'd be like, remember this? And when you say you've seen it all, well, you haven't seen anything. I'm sure there'll be something else we'll be talking about that will be just as bizarre that what we've seen here in the last, 24 hours there in Brooklyn.
Well, What do you make of them picking Udoka? Because the Celtics have said, he's obviously done something. Now, we don't know the facts. We don't like to talk about facts, but,
Right.
the Celtics have said, whatever he's done, we don't want him coaching our team this season. The Nets have said, we don't care what he's done. Come and coach us. So the details haven't really come out. According to Nets Daily yesterday, they said, which was weird, the Nets Daily reported yesterday, the day they said that he was being hired, Ime Udoka had repeatedly sent inappropriate messages to women on the Celtics staff, which of course is not appropriate behavior and should be condemned. But no one really knows what's happened. I imagine we might find out some details now that he's going to be off the Celtics. But the Nets going straight in with that hire, eyebrow raising to say the least.
Well, I think you hit it, you hit the nail right on the head here when you said no one knows the facts. Like, unless you know something more, I don't know. I still don't know.
No one does.
Or it's never what happened.
So Matt Barnes said that Ime Udoka would never coach in the NBA again after he heard apparently what had happened. And here he is coaching a star-studded Brooklyn team.
So no one knows. So that's clear. So let's make that factual point that our audience and everyone needs to know. No one knows other than the Celtics, the people involved, obviously, and Coach Udoka.
The private law firm that came in to investigate.
Yeah, yes. Okay. In saying that, how are we in the media supposed to give a view or opinion about something we don't know the facts to? We don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. So based on what we do know, okay, clearly, based on what we know, the Nets feel that they can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
The Nets said clearly they've done their due diligence. Clearly, they've done all their background checking. Clearly, they know something the rest of us don't know, or at least...
Or they just don't know anything either, and they've just said, we don't care, we want him to coach us.
Exactly. So what can we say other than now we can start giving our opinions based on what we think happened?
So
we don't know or at least I don't know.
Aside from all that stuff, let's keep it on the court. What do you expect from this Udoka team if he does take the reins? I'm anticipating that he starts doing what he did in Boston, and that is improve them on a defensive end, but also he's not afraid to call out players publicly. He called out the Celtics publicly a number of times. How do you think that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in particular would respond to a coach that would call them out publicly? Because Steve Nash clearly did not do that.
Well, the one thing I've learned as a parent is everyone's different.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's different. Marcus Smart is cut a little different than Kyrie Irving. Okay. Okay. All right. Jaylen Brown's a little different than, what is it? Curry kid,
Seth Curry.
Seth Curry. Everyone's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how this is going to play out. He's coming in now, not mid-season, but it's early in the season. He has to have time to implement the way he plays, the way he defends, his offensive schemes, da-da-da. Now, the things that we can see now are he's going to call him out in the media. We could see the coaching, but, Mo, he missed the whole month of training camp.
I'm sure he was watching closely.
Yeah, I'm sure he's watching, but you're not there every day. He didn't get a chance to bond with these guys in the offseason. He hasn't given them the expectations, what he expects. And then realistically, after doing all those things, other than the media's expectation based on, you have two high-level performers in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, what's a realistic expectation of this team? I mean, we could keep saying Kyrie and Kevin, but it takes a team. And right now, they haven't figured that out. So, all right, that sounds good. You can call people out, but that doesn't mean that those people are going to respond.
Yeah.
You have to be able to push the buttons of the team that you're coaching. Now, it's clear to me his coaching method is he's very straightforward. He's no nonsense, and he demands guys play hard, play defense. Well, he's missed that window of opportunity because he can't coach these guys with the expectation in practice, in the summer, building those relationships, and just come in 10 games into the season and be like, hey, I'm here, and I'll call you out tomorrow in the New York Daily News.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening, okay? That's not happening.
Okay.
All right, but what is going to happen is I think over time, I think he can get a fair evaluation. I think those guys can kind of learn his personality and see if it's a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, then you got to get the players that's going to fit his personality, because every coach has to have a, you have to find the players that fit the system that in which your coach is strongest at. And that was a good fit for the Boston Celtics and his personality. And we don't know if this is a good fit for him because he's a defensive oriented coach, and not in comparing players. They both give to the game what they give to the game. But Marcus Smart fits Coach Udoka's personality more than Kyrie Irving does.
Most definitely. That's
just a fact. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it's not, I'm not trying to make Kyrie into a defensive player, and I'm not trying to make Marcus into an offensive player. But Coach Udoka, that's who fits his personality. That's what he's a grinder. He likes to grind and second effort and diving on the floor and Al Horford and the Time Lord. Those type of players. What's your guy's name? Rob Williams. You know what I mean?
I think Claxton will do well with Udoka coaching him.
Yeah. Maybe Claxton fits in that. Okay. But I don't see Rob Williams. I don't see those other guys, at least not yet. Maybe they're there and I just don't see them yet. So we'll see how this plays out.
Well, speaking of Rob Williams, he's obviously missing time for the Celtics, and the Celtics have just lost a pair of games to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who I want to talk about for a hot minute here, because the Cleveland Cavaliers look all types of nice right now. Garland has returned from his eye injury. He's only played 2 games with Donovan Mitchell, and they already look like they've got instant chemistry. They've got elite defenders, Mobley and Allen. Karis LeVert came off the bench. Karis LeVert came off and played great in that first win against the Celtics. So, I like what the Cavs are doing. What have you seen so far that's really impressed you?
Well, the early part of the season, this kid Donovan Mitchell has looked like a star. Okay, it's early.
Yeah.
But more in the first 7-8 games, he's looked like a true star, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean, he's made some big plays, and right now that trade that they made for him is looking real good.
Unlike the other trade the Jazz made for Rudy Gobert and the Timberwolves, which we'll talk about soon. But
right now, Donovan Mitchell looks real good.
I got to jump in here because you guys listening to this show know how much I used to laugh about Donovan Mitchell and his lack of effort on the defensive side. But since he joined the Cavaliers, I don't know whether it's the hype of joining a new team or whether this is really going to be him, because in Utah, no one played defense except for one guy. He's really locked in on the defensive end as well as the offensive end. So maybe it's because he doesn't have to carry like 99% of the offensive load. But salute to Donovan Mitchell, because he's been really locked in on defense, making the effort plays.
Well, every team is different. That's why you make these trades. Every team makes trades based on, they think, well, if I get player X, the coaches think, my system or the players or the personnel. Now, in his defense, they played what's called a funnel defense. They just funneled everything to Rudy. Okay. Everything was funneled towards Rudy. Rudy is a phenomenal, rim protector. And clearly they were doing something, right? They had a really good regular season record. Mm-hmm. One year they had the best record in the league. Mm-hmm. However, you can debate whether that style was best in the regular season as compared to the postseason. You can debate all that. Now they have a different system, and he not only has one, but he has 2 rim protectors back there, elite rim protectors, and Evan Mobley and the what's the other kid?
Jared Allen.
Jared Allen, yeah. back there. So with those two back there and his ability to play the point. Now, you've heard me say this, Mo, how many times now? I've always thought Donovan Mitchell was a point guard. Why? Because Donovan Mitchell, as good of an athlete or as great of an athlete that he is at his size, he's still only 6'2", 6'3" max.
And that's been generous.
Yeah, and that's been generous.
We met him in real life. That's been generous.
Yeah. Now, he has played the point guard in this terrific start of the season because of the injury to Darius Garland. Now, tonight he went back to the two guard position.
Garland stepped in 29 and 11. Amazing performance. He didn't miss a beat.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't miss a beat. And now you put those two. You know what I really like is that when Darius Garland comes off the floor, they put the ball in Donovan Mitchell's hand. I think Donovan Mitchell, and I'm just gonna say it for the last time, I think he is a point guard. I really do. Because he's now your team gets think about this. They have a small backcourt when those two play together. But then when Donovan Mitchell plays the point guard, now they go to a big team. Because how many point guards are big enough to guard Donovan Mitchell? Because of his size. I mean, he's got good size.
But I mean, like Garland's not exactly taking minutes off and being on the bench. They're going to play about the same amount of minutes.
Exactly. But I like the fact that you always have one or both on the floor for 48 minutes. I think that's terrific because now when you bring off Kevin Love, now when you have Mobley, you can slide him to the center position. I just think they have a really, really good team. And in this early part of the season, they've showed you that, they have a lot of potential. Now, there's a lot of basketball to be played, but I really like what this group is doing.
Well, on the other hand, we talk about the trade for Donovan Mitchell. But what do you think about a trade for Rudy Gobert? Because the things in Minnesota ain't looking as great. I thought they could have a good regular season, but it's not looking like that. So, what do you make of that situation going on in Minnesota? Do you think they're going to be able to figure it out, or do you think, it's going to be a little bit tricky?
Well, I think they're going to try. Okay, that's the first thing. I think they are committed to trying to see if this can work out. However, in looking at this group, I think it's very, very difficult to play with 2 7-footers in today's game, especially during the regular season.
Well, I mean, we were just talking about Cleveland, who are playing successfully with 2 7-footers.
Yeah, but those guys are different. Their mobility is a little different than the mobility of Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the one kid, Mobley, was playing as a small forward last year. Okay, and Jared Allen, he's a very mobile guy who you can switch out, and he can, for 2 or 3 dribbles, he's not just an easy blow by. As far as if he switches out on the perimeter. So I think Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, I think that's very challenging for the defense. When you play those guys together, Rudy Gobert is not a pick and pop type of center, like what you're seeing now that's been very successful for the Utah Jazz, where they have 2, have a 4 to 5, Markkanen, Olynyk, who can spread the floor so you can allow your penetrators or your ball handlers to drive to the basket. That's not Rudy Gobert's game. And where you want to have Karl Anthony Towns, in my opinion, where he's most effective is a stretch 5. That's where he's most effective. So I think the spacing is a little off when you watch him on the offensive end, and defensively, they can't ever get into rotation because you can't put Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert on the same side of the floor and think those guys are going to defend small, quick point guards or ball handlers when those guys are, on the same side together. I don't think it's realistic.
On offense, how'd you see it working? Because there was this thing that came out today about Anthony Edwards not having dunked yet this season. And of course, we know Anthony Edwards is one of the best dunkers in the NBA. And obviously, it's tough now. They've got some bigs clogging up the paint. So he's obviously got less driving lanes to be able to go in there and do what he wants to do. I think the offense would be helped if they had a point guard who was more of a pure playmaker rather than a D'Angelo Russell, who's more of a creating his own shot type guy. Do you think that would make a difference to how this team plays on the offensive side of the ball, having a point guard?
No, with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert playing, no, I don't. And the reason being is because one, you can't play fast enough. You know, you hear me talk about this with Philly. Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns together, you can't play fast enough. You can't ask Rudy Gobert to set a screen at let's say the top of the key and pop. There's no place for him to go other than roll.
Yeah.
And if he's not rolling, he has to be in the dunker spot.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. Like, now, if you have Rudy Gobert and he's the only guy, now you can put other 4 players around him, and then you can open up the game according to matchup, so forth and so on. Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns, now you just got to take away something, because Rudy Gobert could only do so much. Rudy Gobert can't create offense for himself. Karl Anthony Towns is a 7-footer, right? I watched Karl Anthony Towns last night play against Cam Johnson. And I kept asking myself, okay, if you're going to allow him to play the 4 position, Cam Johnson is a starting 4 now, you got to post him up.
Yeah.
But if you post him up, where are you going to put Rudy Gobert?
Yep.
He can only go to the dunker spot.
And there's only so many minutes that you can stagger them for, because they both command big minutes, being stars and all-star caliber players.
They're players. So it's just a spacing thing for those guys. And Karl Anthony Towns is a space. I mean, he's a space 5 guy now. You know what I mean? He needs space to pick and pop, create space for those guys, allow the guys to dribble, drive, and attack the rim and throw it out there if the 5 decides to help. But other than that, I don't think this can work. I don't think it can work because of the way the game is played. Not because they're not good players. I just think the way the game is played, I think it's just too fast for those guys to do it on a consistent basis.
Well, that trade is looking worse by the day, so hopefully they can figure it out. Hopefully the Knicks can figure a few things out. Did you see they were up 23 in the second quarter and went down 15 by the end of the third against the Atlanta Hawks? Shout out to the Hawks. They're looking nice. DeJounte Murray is fitting right at home in Atlanta. So, there's a few teams. It's still early in the season. There's a few teams that are still figuring things out. But, the NBA is a crazy place, and it's only going to get crazier. So we're going to be watching with an eager eye. Shout out to Tyler Hero, by the way, a huge game-winning shot today against the Sacramento Kings. That's another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast, though, presented by NBA 2K23. If you don't yet have your copy, make sure you go and hit the link in our description to go and get your copy of the game. BJ and I will be back very soon with more for all of you guys. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, leave a rating. Leaving a review on the Apple Podcast app goes a big way to helping this show grow. We appreciate each and every one of you. And shout out to the Toronto Raptors as well. OG has been absolutely a monster on defense. Him, Precious, Scotty doing their thing. Siakam is putting up MVP caliber numbers. Like you want to see in Toronto, we're going to have to dive into.
Did you say MVP caliber? You said MVP caliber numbers?
Yeah. Siakam has been on a tear. Siakam has been on a tear. I mean, I'm not saying he's an MVP for me, but what I'm saying is, if you just looked at the numbers, what did he have tonight? He had 22, 10, and 11 in 3 quarters of play. Before that, he had 31, 12, and 6, 26, 10, and 6, 20, 13, and 5, 23, 9, and 6, 2, and 2, 23, 8, and 9, 37, 12, and 11, 23, and 11. He's been putting in work. I like what Spicy P's doing. I like what the Raptors are doing. We're going to talk about all of that more, so don't miss a beat. And of course, I'm sure the Lakers will pop up, and we'll see how the Nets play with them. But don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. You're not going to want to miss any of that. We're back better than ever. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Your favorite podcaster's favorite podcast. So until next time, you know the vibes. Get buckets.